semester. Okay. All right, guys, if you don't mind, just to mute your mics while I go ahead and do the presentation, and then unmute when you guys have any questions. There we go. Sorry, got to get the timer off. All right, guys, I wanted to do my presentation on being an effective leader. A little background on me. My name's Juan. I previously used to attend Humboldt State back in 2011-12 is when I came back home. I own and operate a small commercial fitness equipment company. So I came back from Humboldt, and my father and I worked side by side. And in this whole time, I got an associate's degree in business. And, before I found this leadership program, I always asked myself how I could be a more effective leader, because, in my workplace, I'm next to my father, and he has a different mentality of leadership. He's old school, and I feel I'm the new school, and we make a pretty good combo. But there's times when, I felt sometimes this is what I was lacking, leaderships. I still, to this day, I'm not sure what kind of leader I am. I kind of have an idea, but I thought I'd gather three people that I know and ask them 3 questions on what makes them an effective leader. So the 3 questions that I asked were, what are the skills that are most useful to you as a leader? How did you develop these skills? And what has been the most meaningful experience that influenced you as a leader? So a little background of the 3 people that I interviewed. Jose Martinez, he's my older brother. He works for Toyota Corporate, relocated down to Plano, Texas. He basically, if you have a Toyota and you have any issues, warranty, he manages the entire call center for Toyota. So he really has leaders on top, leaders on bottom. So it's a really nice setup, and questioning him was very good for me because I was able to, as you'll see, show you in the description exactly what kind of leader he is. Bob Gruber, he was the owner of a company called Flex Fitness, their exercise equipment company. He is now retired. They were based out of Huntington Beach, California, and he's very old school, like my father. And old school, it's just the old thinking of leadership, not necessarily saying he's old, but a lot of my dad's buddies, which I'm very lucky, we get to see frequently, and I get to kind of pick their brain. I really, in the business that I'm in, I really have a lot of old school experience under my belt, just being able to pick their brains, which is pretty nice. So going forward with that, Jose was telling me that when you should not only meet commitments as a leader, but seeing your stakeholders' points of views and understanding them makes you a good leader. So Jose's a democratic leader, and one of the things that I liked about his, the things that he points out is he was really focused on the fact that a leader is only as strong as its team. So he really takes the time to value his team members, team awareness and understanding. So anytime they have any crucial customer service problems or anything like that, he really takes the time to do a one-on-one and find out if these people that he's working with actually understand what's going on. So one of the neat things about the position that he's in is that his company really makes it easy and facilitates for them to have this one-on-one. I mean, they've got really awesome break rooms where they can go in and meet. They have coffee at 2, which are little small meetings where his staff gets together and they just kind of go back and forth in regards to exactly what it is that's going on, how they can improve things. And in the final sentence, I asked him if he could tell me exactly what was the most meaningful experience that influenced him as a leader. And he says, everyone wants to feel understood and believes mistakes will always be made along the way. Taking a step back, acknowledging them, and moving on is important. he's been able to grow as a leader because people who demonstrated care about his job made him care about his peers and the situations around him. So it's kind of interesting. Jose was, as he came up in his experience, it looks like he was surrounded around people who cared, and it influenced him and motivated him, steered him into the direction of a leadership who cares. Where, as you'll see in my next interview, Bob Gruber has a little bit of a different point of view. But let me read Bob, and then I'll go ahead and ask a question. That way we can compare both. Bob Gruber, he's about 73 years old, and he says as a leader, you come across difficult situations, and you must always be prepared for the different approaches that you face in these situations. So his mentality is that if you're leading a group, you should always be ready for the good or the bad, and you should always be ready to handle the situation. If something terrible happens within the business, you should already have a solution planned ahead. So his style of leadership is the authoritarian leadership, which in a way I felt that I was kind of leaning into as I was interviewing him. I didn't want to sound too hardcore, but I realized that when you have a small business compared to a large corporation, you kind of need to make fast executive decisions, because if you don't have a backup plan, everything is going to cost money. So I kind of understood a little bit, felt I related a little bit more to Bob Gruber, but he really told me something that I wanted to share. He says that skills are not just fully developed at school or by reading, but mainly through experience. So he values experience over education. And I have under me about 6 employees, and I realized I'm 31. I'm kind of in the middle of the new and the old, just because I work alongside with my father, but I'm kind of seeing the newer generation is a little bit more difficult to work with than the older generation. So, for example, in our office, just people that execute and are faster to accomplish goals. In my opinion, it's the older generation, people that are 40 years and up. And I wanted to know if you guys ever came across a situation where you felt maybe the same, or you feel, or anything that you could do to kind of get the new generation to be as efficient as the old generation, or if you guys agree with what I'm saying.
I'll chime in. I think there's 2 things that you brought up, though, that you have to focus on. One is, if you're a leader that's elected or promoted, or you're a leader that's an owner, there's a big difference of investment there. As you personally are an owner of a company and have employees, you have a lot more invested than someone who took on a job and doesn't have the financial involvement in the company, the sink or swim type mentality. So I think those people tend to be more old school from what I've seen in my 40 some odd years. It's the investment of the leader, and they're not willing to give up that grasp to the newer generation. It could be just the old micromanaging type thing, or whatever you want to call it. But I think it's difficult for the older generation, and I'm getting there, to say, hey, I have this much money invested here, and I give it to you in your hands. That might be hard for anybody to do at any level, but that's kind of my take on that. And when you realize the difference between an elected or a promoted leader and an invested leader, I think you have to go down 2 different paths. If that's kind of what we're looking at. And it sounds like the Bob Gruber was kind of more of that old school, where the guy that worked at Toyota was, he doesn't own Toyota. There's a big difference there. So that's my comment.
Anyone else want to share their input?
I think it's interesting because I just started a new job, and I think my office is kind of the exception to that, in that, like, everybody's supervisor is 35. The person under her is 26. I'm 25 and everybody else is somewhere between like 40 and 50. So it's kind of like the reverse dynamic where all the people that are in leadership roles are the younger people and everybody else is kind of from the older generation.
Yeah, that was you, right, Irene?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. I my father's worked for this company since like the '70s. So the entire production team that works with us, still till this day, really my father has always said you make the final decisions, but they still always look to my dad, and completely respect that because of the experience. But I've noticed even now as we go to trade shows, as we're in team meetings and we meet with suppliers. Even though just because I'm young, but most people usually, my dad says, you make all this decisions, do this, and it's always kind of everyone always looks at my dad, and then my dad looks over at me. So I realized, like, as the younger you are, you really just have a little bit more to prove to the older generation. I found it very beneficial to be surrounded with what I call the old school. I mean, my dad's friends are 60, 65 and up, and they're really the pioneers of the industry. Like Bob Gruber, if you've ever walked into a 24-hour fitness or an LA Fitness and you've seen Star Trek fitness machines, which they're one of the top 3 companies, he actually developed and owned this fitness equipment. So in my experience, just out of the two, I realized that, just listening to the new and the old really, which not a lot of people do, really can make you a much more effective leader. So that to me was one of the things that I appreciate for what I do, listening to the democratic and more of the hardcore leader. I'll go ahead and move over to Jonathan Tiango. He's a family friend. He is actually a school principal, and one of the challenges that he had when he took over this position is that he replaced a principal that had a doctorate. He was twice his age, and he was very intimidated because he felt at this time, he said he was about 33. He felt that he wasn't going to be taken seriously, but one of his approaches that he did is he really seeked out the community. So his philosophy and his thought behind leadership was that if you reach out to the community, and you from the community you reach out to your assistant principals, from your assistant principals onto your teachers and your students, you'll be a lot more effective. Really, just caring about what other people's thoughts and input are. So he was very similar to what Jose saw, what Jose's point of view was. And one of the things, like Matt was saying, and I tell them, I give them a hard time. Like Jose, he's somebody I speak to frequently. It's very easy when you got to recall so many thousands and thousands of cars, but Toyota has billions and billions of dollars in the bank, and when you have to make that executive decision as a small business, you got to be very smart, because it could literally break your company in a matter of weeks or days. So just the difference in what it is to be an effective leader for a small business and a larger corporation or organization like Jonathan and Jose, really something that I wanted to discuss. So just speaking with the 3 people, I think I mostly got this from Jose and Jonathan, is that being an everyday leader really requires you to have a strong vision, be able to reach out to your leader, to your community, everybody's understanding, because you really are only as strong of a leader as you are strong as a team. So I thought that that was something very interesting. When I started my business, I think during that time I was probably in my early 20s, and it was very hard to listen to what other people had to say. And I think throughout trial and error, you start to realize that if you really want to be successful, you really have to start to listen to other people's input, and marinate everybody's ideas and decide what's the best solution for any decisions you make as a leader. So I thought that was important. Did anybody have any comments or questions in regards to that? Let me see here. Okay, I think, well, I'm gonna cut the presentation here. I think I reached close to what I was preparing on the time limit. But if you guys don't have any questions, I appreciate you guys coming in so early. I really thought this assignment was due next week, so I had planned to do that on Wednesday, I think, at 11 a.m. and there was a typo, and luckily I had already finished the presentation, so I scheduled very early. This is the earliest I could get on without having my 3-year-old and my newborn jumping around my shoulders. So.
Well, I just want to say you did a really good job. You did a different take on it by interviewing somebody and then talking about your interview and what you took from them. So that was really interesting. I liked your presentation.
Thank you, Molly. I appreciate that. I'm still trying to find ways to improve myself as a leader. I thought I had an idea, and then I took the first class, and I was like, oh man, there's just so much more to learn, because there's so many effective leaders and everybody has their own ideas, but just knowing as much as you can about leadership and just putting everything into work, it's a hard process. Leadership studies is not I really thought leadership studies, this is going to be easy, and I find myself questioning myself every day. Am I an effective leader? Am I doing this right? So it's kind of nice to always check yourself and make sure that you're preparing yourself, because we all want to be good leaders, but we really need to know as much as we can and put all that into work. Okay, guys. So I appreciate you guys coming in. I think that was the presentation. Thank you so much for coming in early, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good job, Juan. Thanks.
Good job. Happy
Thank
birthday.
you. Good luck with the rest of the semester, and I'll see you guys soon.
Okay,
Yeah.
bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Good job, Juan.
Thank you.